And we are live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chris, and of course, this is my channel, Barnun 11970. And as always, I'd like to start my video for thanking everybody for taking the time to listen to this. And hopefully, with an open mind, I can help maybe have you think in other ways. And that's always a good thing. So today is the 7th of June 2017. It is about 6:18 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I want to discuss this modern day and age of thinking, and I'm talking about the masses, how everybody is so offended by every little thing these days. And it's going to get us to the point where you're not allowed to do or say anything because it will always be interpreted by somebody as offensive. And as you could see by the image you see on your screen, it says successful people never worry about what others are doing. And I want to try and put it in perspective to help you think in alternative ways, to maybe get people to realize, because like I always say, you need real eyes to realize that this current way of thinking is only going to end up ultimately hurting even the people right now that seem to be offended by everything. And I want to put it in this perspective. See, because so many people are so worried about what other people think about themselves that they spend all of their energy focused on others instead of themselves. And my thing is, if you are truly a confident person, it should not matter what anybody else says or thinks about you because it is nothing more than their opinion. And like any opinion, they are allowed to have them, but it doesn't make it truth, or at least your truth, unless you want it to be. And nowadays, people are so worried about, you know, the race. They're so worried about gender. They're so worried about equality, which is fine. But if it gets to the point where it's an obsession and you're so worried about every single little minute thing that somebody says to the point where you're going to be offended by everything, eventually you'll never be happy. And I'll give you a prime example because I used to karaoke DJ at this place. They shut down, unfortunately. The bar closed down. But there were a couple of transgender people that would come in and sing. And they came every week for the 2 years I was there. Great people. Now, do I agree with that lifestyle? Well, for me personally, no. But I was very good friends with them. You don't have to agree with everything that people do and say. Otherwise, you can't like them. I didn't have a problem with them at all. As a matter of fact, I got along with them more than some people that I've known for years that used to go to other karaoke jobs that I did for over almost 10 years. But the problem is, so many people worry about what other people think about them. Now, I want you to think about this. When was the last time, let's talk about broccoli. Some people love to eat broccoli. Some people hate eating broccoli. And there's some in between. Now, when was the last time you were offended? Let's say you love broccoli and you meet this new person or a coworker or you have a conversation with a family member or whatever and you find out they absolutely hate broccoli. Does that mean you can't be friends with them now? It's like, oh, how could you not like broccoli? It's so good for you. It's so nutritious. It tastes wonderful. How could you hate it? You'd never have that happen, and that sounds crazy, doesn't it? So why, if you put it in that perspective, does somebody have to say, oh, well, you're not the same race as me, or you don't agree with my lifestyle, so I must hate you now, or you must hate me? No. I am a heterosexual male. I don't believe in the gay lifestyle. That doesn't mean that I'm going to stop anybody else or shame anybody else for their right to make their own choice. I don't hate them because I don't agree with them. And that is the problem with what I see a lot of people. I mean, I see it posting on Facebook and social media, and I see it on YouTube all the time, that people are so worried about what everybody else does that what could have been a good starting point, like, people should not be bullied. People should not be abused. People should not be picked on. especially when it comes to somebody's religion or somebody's lifestyle choice or skin color. I thoroughly agree with that. And those are movements that started out in the right way. But now we see so many people now that are so offended if you don't say the correct title or you don't make an assumption. Because almost everything in life is a choice. There are exceptions to that rule, of course. But if you decide one day that you know what, I want to be a bisexual female, or I consider myself, you switch genders for whatever reason. Now, it's not like all of a sudden, if you were a woman, all of a sudden you woke up the next day and you grew a male appendage. You can make a choice to say, I feel more closely towards another gender. So it is a choice, even if you feel it that it's not, because you didn't all of a sudden switch body parts unless, of course, you got an operation. But even with that, that is again a choice. But if that makes you comfortable and it makes you happy and it makes you feel like this is where I want to be, then it shouldn't matter what anybody else thinks. Now, obviously, if people come along and try and hurt you or stop you from being who you are, then yes, you have the right to defend yourself, for example, or be, concerned about other groups of people. Because unfortunately, as you see in this world, most people are generally cowards, and they tend to need groups to formulate enough energy combined to gather the strength that one true strong person can easily acquire on their own. So if you are happy with who you are, then it shouldn't matter what anybody else says or thinks. Because trust me, even on YouTube here, there are people who will listen to this video or have thought about me or have heard of my channel who, for whatever reason, absolutely hate me. I've had people that have called my house, given out my personal information, threatened to kill me, make fun of me, make false assumption. That's what it is. And it took me a long time to kind of gather that, because it's not about them, it's about me and how I perceive things. And there are still people to this day, they'll thumb down a video just because, oh, Chris made a video, got to thumb it down, doesn't matter the content. And even on my comic book channel, there are people that have made such assumptions about me that if I worry about what everybody else thinks, especially strangers who really don't do anything for me in my life, one would go crazy. And it's okay to learn, because I've said in very many videos, and if you haven't seen any, I hope you check them out, especially the last couple of month and a half worth of videos, that sometimes when you have negativity continually reapproach you over and over again, it's to try and teach you some kind of learning lesson, and it's going to keep representing itself until you face it. That's why, for example, if you have a different religion, or you decide that you want to be a cross-dresser, or you decide today's the day you're going to come out and say you're gay, or whatever, or you go from a Democrat to a Republican, it doesn't really matter. If it's right for you, that's all that matters. And associate with people that will, at the very least, respect your choices. The problem is so many people are worried so much about what other people think that they're never happy, because instead of loving who they are and appreciating their own right to a choice, they're spending their whole life telling others what they can and cannot say, what they can and cannot do. And I mean, I'll give you a prime example of something that happened recently. I'm sure most of you are aware of what happened with the Kathy Griffin incident, when she held up what looked to be a severed head of Donald Trump, all bloodied. Now, does she have the right to do it? Absolutely. But was it a smart decision on her behalf? Probably not, as you could see the backlash. And when she made her quote-unquote apology, as she rolls her eyes at least twice in her quote-unquote apology video, she then decides to hire a lawyer, saying how she's now being bullied. And that is sending such a bad message, especially to the youth or people who are her fans, that says you don't have to take responsibility for what you do. You just continually blame others and always be the victim. Well, here's the thing. If you spend your whole life being a victim, you will always be a victim, even if it's something you don't want to be, because you focus on your energy on it so much that you manifest the very thing you don't want because you keep speaking about it and you keep focusing on it. So if you decide that you're bisexual, if you decide you're an atheist, if you decide that you are a vegan, it doesn't matter what other people think, even if it's a 180-degree turn of what you once were. Because maybe sometimes you just need to see, is this an option? Is this something I want? Because just because you make a change doesn't mean you can't change back or continue to change. That's what growth is all about. That's why we all go through phases in life. But if you do things in life based completely on other people agreeing and liking it and saying what you want to hear, that's just pandering. And nowadays, people are so afraid to say anything and speak their mind for fear of being judged or attacked that people are not being honest anymore. They're not being genuine. They're just being condescending. They're just saying what you want to hear. So what would mean more to you? A million people just pandering to you, or one person who loves you for who you are? And if you would choose the one person, then it's all about integrity. It's all about honesty. It's all about being genuine. You cannot change the world by forcing somebody into a belief system they may not have. But you should also not assume that just because somebody doesn't agree with your choices or your lifestyle, it doesn't necessarily mean they hate you or want to end your life. Although there are a few bad apples that try and spoil the tree. And that's why I use myself as an example. Those of you who've been watching my channel and they listen to me on a regular basis, they can pretty much conclude, based on my videos, that I'm not some violent person wishing death on people. But that doesn't mean that if you murder somebody, you shouldn't be punished. It doesn't mean that I'm going to believe in everybody's lifestyle choices. But it doesn't mean I'm going to stop you unless you're doing harm to others. Because life should be about exploring and experiencing whatever you need to develop as a human being, as long as you are not infringing on the rights of others. And this world is so concerned about saying and doing the right thing and just being this free spirit where you can be anything you want and you can accuse other people of racism just because they're a certain skin color. And if you're not a certain skin color, then you can't be racist, which just makes no sense to me. And all this, I mean, like, for example, body shaming. You shouldn't make fun of people. It's just not nice. Can you have the right to do it due to free speech? Absolutely. But there's a thing called common sense. There's a right and a wrong way to live a life. If you spend your life doing nothing but putting other people down and use the excuse of, well, I can do it, I have the right, what does that say about you as a human being? You can easily run over an animal because you have that choice to do it. But is it the right thing to do? And this is something I want people to think about. And I've pretty much tried to live my life with this quote. And it's, just because you can doesn't mean you should. I mean, you can easily go up to somebody and say, I have the right to call you whatever name I want. But is it the right thing to do? Is it the humane thing to do? So if you have a lifestyle change or a lifestyle choice and it's different from other people, if you are so worried about what other people think, then are you doing it just because you want attention? Or are you doing it because you generally and genuinely want this change for you? Because the true test is not how you speak, but how you feel. And you could go out and pretend that you are fine. And one of the things I noticed, and I don't give any names of people, is these transgender people that used to come to my karaoke every single Friday, religiously. They were sometimes the only people in the bar. That although they were friendly and they were kind to each other, they let it known they were very depressed. And that is not healthy for you. So you do what makes you happy. And if you worry so much about other people and the way they think about you, you're going to spend your whole life's energy on others instead of yourself. So there are, because of free speech, people that are going to take advantage of that. And they could leave a comment here, and I've seen many a comment of people saying some very nasty things. And they do it anonymously, because that's what cowards do. Do they have the right to do it? Absolutely. Does it make them a better person for it? Probably not going to win Man or Woman of the Year awards by doing things like that. So the best advice I could give anybody out there, whether you've gone through a transition or you're going through a transition, whether you're the most beautiful person in the world or the least beautiful person in the world, if you love who you are, it should not matter what anybody else says. Because just imagine if you were walking down the street and somebody just came up to you and said, "Excuse me, are you a duck?" Well, you're not a duck. So you could say, "No, I'm not a duck." And they look at you and say, "Well, I think you're a duck. You look like a duck to me. You must be a duck." Well, are you going to get offended? Are you going to want to stop that person's right to be able to make that choice to say such a ridiculous thing? Does it make you a duck because somebody else said so? Let's say he gets a second opinion. So, "Excuse me, look at this person. Don't they look like a duck?" And they say, "Oh, you're right." And let's say the whole town comes in and says, "You look like a duck." Does that make you a duck just because everybody else sees that? The problem is most people are very weak-minded. They may claim to be strong. They may say it all the time of how confident they are. But true confidence is never having to say you are, because actions always speak louder than words. And Andrew Boyle says something that's very true. Most never practice what they preach. Yes, it's called hypocrisy. So you don't have to like everybody. You don't have to pander. And that's the one thing about my channel, and I think people like this. I may not say everything that you're going to agree with. I may not say everything that you're going to like. But at least you know I'm going to be straightforward with my beliefs, and I'm not going to cuddle anyone. I'm not going to pander to anyone just to get views, just to get attention, just to get subscribers. I'm going to say how I feel and give people the choice to either agree or disagree. The only thing I don't tolerate is hate speech attacking me for just having my right to have my own way of thinking. Because just imagine if we all looked the same way, we all did the same things, we all spoke the same way. What a boring world that would be. There would be nothing new, nothing fresh, nothing exciting, nothing to look forward to. Knowing that when you look in the mirror, you see yourself, but if you look at somebody else, you see yourself as well. What a boring, miserable world that would be. And we're headed in that way because so many people are worried about other people. I mean, look how much segregation now with the racial division now of people wanting to separate races, because me as a white person, I can't talk about anyone else's race, otherwise it makes me a racist. That is absolutely unprecedented. It's ridiculous. My next door neighbors to me are African American or black or whatever you want to be called. I've never had a problem with them. They've never had a problem with me. They are my next door neighbors. I don't have a problem with anyone, whether they are gay, straight, Republican, Democrat, whatever, as long as they're good, decent people. And my next door neighbors don't have to come over and bring me flowers every day or pander to me saying, "Oh, you're such a nice person." No. How about just two people that don't even have to talk on a day and just respect each other's right to be where they are and don't instigate something? And before they were there was there was a gay couple. There was two women that lived together. They were not the nicest people in the world. I didn't like them because they were not nice. I didn't have a problem with them because of their lifestyle choice. and I don't agree with their lifestyle choice. And I have that right. Nobody has the right to tell me my own opinions and my own beliefs, even if it contradicts yours. But don't associate with people who don't agree with you. But you don't have to hate them, and you definitely have no right to stop them from thinking the way they do. People have to lose their fear, because if people just pander to these minorities, and when I mean minorities, I don't mean of color, I mean, like, for example, the transgender group. That's what, less than 1% of the population? And they're getting so much attention that it's making the masses be afraid to do and say anything. Eventually it's going to come to the point where you can't say anything, because somebody will be offended by it. And what a crazy world that will be. And that all comes down to fear. Let go of the fear. If you don't agree with something, that's fine. Just like if you don't like broccoli, no one's forcing you to eat it. And you shouldn't ban it just because you don't like it. Just don't eat it. So it's the same thing with whatever you believe in, whatever you feel, whomever you love. As long as it's not something illegal, like you shouldn't be doing inappropriate things to children or inappropriate things to animals or inappropriate things to people that don't give you the permission to. As long as you are in a safe environment with consenting adults. You know, hey, if you have a religious belief and you think some people are going to burn in hell for their choices, you know what? That's your decision to have, and that right to do that, but you shouldn't be making them feel horrible for their own choices, because if that is the case, they will suffer their own consequences. Live and let live. Because if most people thought that way, there would be less chances of war. There'd be less chances of hate. There'd be less chances of division. So I don't have a problem with saying I don't believe, for example, in the transgender or gay lifestyle. But that doesn't mean I'm going to ban it. It doesn't mean I'm going to make somebody feel uncomfortable. I just don't agree with it. Just like I don't like broccoli. I'm not going to stop anyone else from eating it. I'm not going to make fun of somebody just because they like it. And I'm definitely not going to ban it from the world. I'm just not going to eat it. So when it comes to a lifestyle choice or whatever, some people are going to like it. Some people are not going to like it. You don't have the right to hurt somebody else because you don't agree. And you definitely don't have the right to tell somebody else what they can and cannot like, as long as they are not hurting you. Two wrongs definitely do not make a right. And until people these days start seeing the error of their ways with so much anger, because you see all these people that want equality these days, they're so angry, so full of hatred and accusations, that there's no self-love. And if you have no love in your heart, true love in your heart, is there any wonder why nothing but pain and suffering and misery is surrounding your life? And again, that is a choice. Because when I didn't have as much love in my heart, especially when I started this channel and my other channel, Barn on 11967 back in the days, and even my first time around on my comic book channel, We Love Comics, I was very angry and defensive because of what people were doing and saying. And I pointed my energy towards them and saying, how did this why is this happening? Until when I realized that I am responsible for my choices. Now, that doesn't stop the hatred. There are some people that are just going to, for whatever reason, going to hate me no matter what I do, no matter what I say. They have it stuck in their mind. And they have that right. But I don't let it bother me anymore because it just doesn't have the same meaning. So I want to thank everybody that try and live their own life, to love themselves. If you truly, and I mean truly, love yourself, you don't give a damn what anybody else thinks, because it's nothing more than an opinion. If we continue down the path that we're headed on, the majority of these people that are going to tell everybody and dictate what everybody can do and not do, say and not say, believe and not believe, like and not like, We're going to head down a path that one day will have no return. So if we want another civil war, let's keep the racial dividing strong the way it's going. The abuse, just because you can, just because it's easy, especially these days with the internet. You could hide behind a computer, you could make up a fake profile, you can make several fake profiles, you could be anyone you want with the goal of hurting other people for your own personal amusement. One day it will backfire. One day it will be you that is the abused, and you won't like it. So if there has been a culture or a person's lifestyle that has been abused, and now all of a sudden you're the abuser, well, that makes you a hypocrite. And then you become the very monster you create. And that's why if you look at the movie Frankenstein, remember, when you hear the word Frankenstein, most people think of the monster. That's not Frankenstein. Frankenstein is the doctor. That's why he's Frankenstein's monster. He created the monster. And if that monster goes around destroying the village, as bad as it is that the monster did what he did, but not for the fact that the Dr. Frankenstein created that monster, none of that would have occurred. It's all about taking responsibility, and it takes a strong person to admit that, and even a stronger person to change their mind and change their way of thinking. But you can do that anytime you want. So if you're not happy, then there's something in your life you are, because of your ego or because of your fear, or maybe even your naivety, you're not facing. And the only person you hurt in the long run is you. So stop filling a black hole that will never be filled, because you'll spend your whole life filling in a void. And maybe you might have to take a few steps back to go in another direction. And it may take you a while, but better to take a while taking a step backwards and getting on a better path than spending the rest of your life being unhappy and trying to convince yourself every day of how happy you are. Because you can't lie to the truth. You could lie to everybody else. You can even lie to yourself. You cannot lie to truth. And you directly, how you affect and treat others will show people who you truly are. And until you accept the responsibility for what you choose to do and not do, and you focus on more loving yourself, you're never going to get the things that you want, because you're using your energy in a negative way. And if you use your energy in a negative way, you will attract nothing but negative energy that will continue to come your way. So, as usual, I want to thank everybody that took the time to leave your comments. Whether you're watching this live or you watch it days, weeks, months later, I always appreciate it. Don't forget, when this video comes online, or even now, if you thumb it up, it helps, because YouTube is going to, as soon as this processes, YouTube is going to block this in most countries, because they do that with every one of my videos. So without your help sharing it and getting it out there and posting on your social networks, it's hardly ever going to see the light of day. And that's why I could be close to 40,000 subscribers and have less than 1,000 views per video. I don't do it for the money, and I definitely don't do it for the views. Because if I help one person, like it says on my logo, my slogan is uniting the people one person at a time. That's all that matters to me. So thank you very much. I always appreciate you guys taking the time to listen. Let others watch this if you think it's going to help them. Be good to one another. Love yourself. And I hope you all have a great day. I'll see you soon.